Okay, I had to get a cue to know that I'm on. So I was trying to be very patient. It's hard for me to be quiet that long. Okay, anybody who knows me can vouch for that. So today, the title of my talk is Let's See. And when you stood up here and said I was talking about contentment, I went, wait, am I supposed to be talking about? And then I realized, yes, it's in there. It's absolutely in there. And it was in the description that I sent. Most importantly, that's exactly, exactly. So let's see. So what do you think that means? I wonder. Excuse me. So there is an ancient story that you've probably heard before, but I'm going to tell it to you again. And it's about a farmer whose son had a beloved stallion that helped the family earn a living. And one day the horse ran away. And the neighbors all said, "Oh my, your horse ran away. What terrible luck." And the farmer said, "Maybe so, maybe not. We'll see." And a few days later, the horse returned home, and the horse was leading a few wild mares back to the farm. And the neighbors then said, "Your horse has returned and brought several horses with him. What great luck." And the farmer replied, "Maybe so, maybe not. We'll see." Then later that week, the farmer's son was trying to break one of the mares, and she threw him to the ground, breaking his leg. And the villagers cried out, "Oh no, your son broke his leg. What terrible luck." Maybe so, maybe not. We'll see. Then a few weeks later, soldiers from the National Army marched through town recruiting all the able-bodied young men, but they didn't take the farmer's son because he was still recovering from his injury. And the friends gleefully shouted, "Your boy is spared. What tremendous luck." To which the farmer replied all together, "Maybe so, maybe not. We'll see." So that farmer definitely had a let's see attitude. And what do I mean by a let's see attitude? It's an I don't mind attitude. That kind of a perspective that's able to accept life with ease, just the way it is. Wow, that's kind of a big deal, right? I know, and I bet you know people, though, who, when they run into the bumps in life, the challenges and obstacles, they immediately look to the worst case scenario, the worst possible outcome. And for the purposes of this talk, I'm going to call those people awfulizers. I had to put a new word in my dictionary on my computer because it just kept telling me this is wrong. But I think it's perfect. Awfulizers. They can make almost anything seem like the most awful thing that has ever happened. I was raised by an awfulizer. In fact, several people in my immediate family were awfulizers. They always saw the worst side of things first, always went there. Now, they might finally be there, and were really finally there for you at the last possible moment when they decided you really needed help and support. But you really had to go through a lot of naysaying, criticism, and blame for your current circumstances before you got there. I, of course, annoyed everyone by being the Pollyanna of the family most of the time. It just drove them crazy and deep inside. I loved that part. So, and I'll give you one example. When I wasn't a child, but quite a bit older, I was far into my MBA program and within a year of graduation, after 7 years of night school to get that. And I had also been working during that time full time in a 60-hour-a-week demanding management level job. And on this particular occasion, I had received some recognition. And I was so excited. And I had been invited into a co-ed fraternity based upon business achievement and outstanding grades. It was a nice honor to have after all that work. And when I told my mother, which this is a little clue to who my awfulizer was, when I told my mother about this honor, her reply was, well, I don't know how you're going to do one more thing. You're just so busy already. And that was it. And for the first time in my life, really, the first time in my life, that's why I remember it so well, I said what I was thinking about this all too familiar type of response for whatever achievement was up for discussion. It just sort of rolled out of my mouth. Not in a mean way either. It was just very straightforward and sort of factual. I said, you're not supposed to say that. You're supposed to tell me how proud you are of me. It was a really quite a while before, maybe even a couple or 3 years before I realized that what she was communicating was not about me at all, but about her fear that there would be no time for her in my life. But that's an entirely different thing than this whole idea of let's see. We'll talk about that whole thing some other time. But it's one of the things that happens when you don't have a let's see attitude. Lots of judgment, lots of negativity, lots of just looking for everything bad to come up. When we persistently look for the worst side of everything, we are certain to find it. It takes practice to move away from the lifelong habit of awfulizing. And I'm not talking about ignoring crime, injustice, or immorality. I know that, of course, we must do what is ours to do about those particular things. What I'm talking about is really a continuation of the mindfulness talk we had a couple of months ago. It's about not engaging the vast number of thoughts that go through our mind, the possible negative things that could happen, but rather observing and taking the approach that everything that happens is for us, either as a blessing or a lesson that is likely to become a blessing somewhere down the road. When I was in my mid-20s, I was drawn to a verse in the Bible from the book of Philippians. Because of the faith I was raised in and the dogma attached, I found myself making a very difficult decision in my life that would go against everything that I was taught growing up. And in my search for what to do and what was the right answer for me, I found this verse. And from that time on, it's become very special to me and helped me and supported me through many challenges and obstacles along the way. In chapter 4 of Philippians, Paul said, I have learned to be content with whatever I have. I know what it is to have little, and I know what it is to have plenty. In any and all circumstances, I have learned the secret of being well fed and of going hungry, of having plenty and of being in need. Here's the payoff. I can do all things through him who strengthens me. By maintaining a let's see attitude, we engage equanimity. Do you know this word equanimity? Do you know what it really means? I thought I knew it. But I every once in a while run across a word I've been using, and I know how to spell it, and I know how to say it, and I think I know what it means, and I go, I better look this up. Especially if I'm going to talk about it, I think I better be sure I know what it means. And I did. I knew what it meant. I'm so glad. But so maintaining a let's see attitude, we engage in equanimity. Nice word. I like it a lot. That is, we are able to be willing to accept things as they are happening in the moment. Wouldn't our world be in such a better place right now if more people lived in equanimity? No matter if these things are challenging, boring, exciting, disappointing, painful, or exactly what you want, equanimity means you accept this is the reality. This is what is happening. Let's see, and equanimity is about balance and calmness, not making assumptions, nor jumping to conclusions. It's a basic trust in the flow of things, or as we Unity folks like to say, in divine order. And it's about the difference between I don't care and I don't mind. This makes us look more at the ideas of non-resistance, acceptance, and even surrender. When we talk about I don't mind, it's not that we are not compassionate, or it's not about being indifferent or uncaring. It simply means that we're willing to accept that things are what they truly are, happening the way they are, and that we are able to accept the circumstances as they come up. Not necessarily being happy about them. They're not necessarily fun, but acknowledging the reality of them. It means we're ready to move through the events of our lives. There's no other way but to acknowledge them. You can't move through until you see what you're dealing with. Not minding it means that we don't let it get us down or break our spirit. We know that we can rise above any obstacle because our source is bigger than any problem, obstacle, or circumstances that ever comes up. And surrendering to that knowledge is not a sign of weakness, but rather an indication of pure faith and courage. I'm standing on the precipice of some new things I'm wanting to do. And I realize that I'm having to call on my courage much more than I have in a long time. When I was a teenager and when I was in high school and in college, in fact, I almost went that route completely. I was very involved in music and drama. And I even taught music for a while. And I remember that feeling of going on stage and just being consumed with that stage fright butterfly thing, but knowing that it was a really good thing, and that even though it felt like I couldn't even remember what my first line was or my first lyric was or whatever I was doing that particular time, that the minute I stepped on stage, it was just going to be glorious and so much fun. And Suzanne's over there nodding her head. And it's true. Well, I feel that way about my life right now because I'm starting some new things, and I'm not like what we used to call a spring chicken. I'm like, but I've done this over and over, new things. So I find them exciting. But this particular one is bringing lots of butterflies. I feel like I'm just standing in the middle of butterflies right now. But part of me is so excited about that because I know that once I move through this and into it, it is going to be so much fun. But you kind of have to stand in the let's see place for a while to get here. So that's why this let's see thing is pretty important to me right now. But I have to say, I think it's pretty important to all of us in order to move always forward. We have to be willing to say, let's see what happens. If we throw up a barrier of fear every time something doesn't go the way we wanted it to, oh my gosh, how often does something go the way you want it to? Exactly. In my life, it hardly ever does. I mean, hardly ever. And I do know people who just can't stand that, especially people that I would say like to be in total control, which is just a myth. With this many people around you, for one thing, how could you have any control at all? They're all making their own decisions. And, I don't even, it's not logical to think that you have any control at all. So let's see, I think is pretty important. Now, so this whole thing of surrender and non-resistance and this whole thing it is a sign of strength and courage. And it's a sign that we can move through life and forward on our spiritual journey with ease and grace. Just breathe, ease and grace. Connect with your source, ease and grace. And when I think of moving through life with ease and grace, then I naturally land on the idea of living in the divine flow of life. And Eric Butterworth, I told you, I always mention Eric Butterworth. So there he is. Eric Butterworth has a book called In the Flow of Life, one of my favorites. And he says that when we are in the flow, everything is right and in balance. So speaking of arriving at equanimity as a place of calm and balance and being able to accept what's happening in the current moment, that's living in the flow. And it's living in the moment, back to mindfulness. That's divine order. It kind of all fits together, right? It's all one big principle. It's just all the same thing. Flow is something constant. There appears to be no beginning or end. And water in the form of a stream or a river is probably the closest example or metaphor that we have for being in the flow, because unless we interfere with it, or there's something like an unusual drought, like we've seen here in Arizona, there is no beginning or end to streams and rivers that flow back to the ocean, because that's where they go. That's just where that's what they're looking for. And so is the flow of our life. It's the constant flow of consciousness that is the center of your very being. It is God, spirit, source, whatever you call that spark of the divine within you. And Eric Butterworth calls it flow. He calls flow living from the inside out. So there are at least two ways to look at life. The first way is that we come into the world an empty vessel, and we spend our lives going out, accumulating whatever we can, and filling up that vessel. Our life is made up of whatever material things we manage to gather and whatever experiences and relationships we have. The second and my preferred way to look at life is that we come into the world as living spiritual beings. We have infinite potential because of the spiritual knowing that is already at our center, because we are made in the image and likeness of God. The image and likeness of God. Think about what that means. Most of us have been conditioned to go out into the world looking for or even begging for the gifts of spirit or God. But Paul said, you notice I'm doing a lot of scripture, which is my background. I had a lot of training in that, but a lot of it's really good. So I recommend it. I recommend taking a look at it sometime, especially the New Testament. I love good stuff in there. So 2 Timothy 1:6 said, rekindle the gift of God that is within you. This suggests that we've had it all along, just like Dorothy did, right? You had it all along. Just click your heels together. I mean, kind of same thing. It's been within us all the time. I wonder if any of you, like I have caught myself doing recently, have been checking the political and world news lately just to see what kind of day you're having. I mean, it's like you just never know, what's happening today. So it's not a place I want to live, to be seeking that out all the time. When we get caught up on all that stuff, the nicest word I can think of to call it, that's going on out there, we're almost ensuring that we will have a bad day the longer we spend there. And the only way to combat this is to jump back into the flow. Live in divine order and live from the inside out. Reconnect. Take a breath. You have to. It's just about mandatory to connect to the good. Look for the good and be grateful. There are some things that we can do to move into the flow and the I don't mind, let's see attitude. First, daily meditation. Just 5 to 10 minutes, even 3 minutes, whatever, 2 breaths connecting will make a difference. They will bring you right back because it's right there. You had it all the time. Click your heels, close your eyes, take a breath. Second, forgiveness. If you're feeling out of the flow, it's very likely that you haven't forgiven someone for something. And it may be you, maybe yourself, or just the circumstances. Why is this happening? Forgive everyone for everything all the time. Because that's for you. They don't even know that you're forgiving them most of the time. It's for you. It clears your way to the source. Third, always look for the good. Instead of dwelling on lack and negativity, what you don't have, don't focus on what you don't want. Look for the good in everything. Fourth, live in the consciousness of God, Spirit, Source. Practice being fully present in the moment. Again, mindfulness. And finally, start each day with a grateful heart. Before your feet even touch the floor, think of 3 things that you're grateful for. Anything will change your life. So are you beginning to get the picture? This let's see attitude is just this constant flow of more and more love that comes through you from your spiritual source, bubbling up and out from deep within you. And when this happens, there are certain perks that come along with it. Order and peace of mind, healing and wholeness, release through acceptance and non-resistance of what is, oneness with spiritual love and all other creations of spirit. And probably the most important gift of living in the let's see attitude is something we don't talk a lot about in Unity anymore, but the founders, the foundational materials talk about it a lot. And that's divine substance, divine stuff, God stuff. It's just the total essence of you. It's what's meant in Acts 17, where it says, in him we live and move and have our being. Our being, that's divine substance. Like a cocoon. Now we've talked about what we can do to move into the state of I don't mind. What would keep us from it? Worry, lack of forgiveness, needing to be in control. Any control freaks out there? It's a pretty human thing to want to control things. Comparing ourselves to others or feeling in competition all the time. Burnout. You may not think about this, but by pushing through all the time, we think it's such a great thing to just push through and get that done. When we do that frequently, we're not living in faith. Nothing ever tells us from a spiritual perspective that we're supposed to burn ourselves out. It tells us to take care of ourselves. So how do we stay in the flow? Simple answer, prayer and meditation. That'll always be where I go because that's the connection point. This is how you get your guidance, and you can't make a bad choice. Suzanne wants to sing. I know, it's lovely. Well, I don't mind. So yes, it's fine. It's fine. And so if you had, so let me step back. So this connection is how you get your guidance, this meditation connection, and you can't make a bad choice. Do you know that? Do you realize that? You can't make a really wrong choice. It may feel like a wrong choice because you don't like it. You made it and wait, I didn't like that. Well, then all you have to do is go another direction. There are infinite do-overs in the flow. Infinite do-overs. You can switch anytime, right? Change is inevitable. We're in constant flux. And things don't always go the way we planned, as we said, and the way we want them to. In fact, rarely do they. But you don't have to let it take you out of the flow, nor out of a sense of not minding, in the knowledge that all things do really work for you. Here's what you do. I'm going to give you a really cool, quick tool you can use anytime. You can try this affirmation. I accept the reality of this situation, but not its permanence. Say that with me. I accept the reality of this situation, but not its permanence. Say it again. I accept the reality of this situation, but not its permanence. It doesn't serve you well to pretend it hasn't happened. To move on, you have to accept it and feel the feelings of disappointment or any other negative feelings you might have. But you can stand up to it by affirming that you have all you need to meet the challenge. that it has no power over you because spirit in you is greater than anything you ever encounter. One last critical thing to remember about living in the flow of life and benefiting from the resulting order of things is that, by definition, flow is a passing thing. Ever moving, ever changing, life comes to pass. How often we've said, this too shall pass, and so it shall. If it's challenging and hard and negative, it will pass. And if it's wonderful and fun and positive, it will pass. Life itself is a flowing experience. This is where we use our affirmation. I accept the reality of this experience, but not its permanence. Say it. I accept the reality of this experience, but not its permanence. So keep that one. It's a good one. It's a good one. Our challenges didn't come to stay. They came to pass. It's always our attitude that matters most. Not holding on to any one thought or circumstance will keep us always in the flow. And that place of equanimity where there is calm and balance. Nothing is permanent, and only one event in life on this plane is truly terminal. It's almost, right? That just no one thing is ever terminal except the one that is. It's almost Thanksgiving. Some of us are traveling to family, and some of us have family traveling to us. A lot of us will celebrate with others as we challenge ourselves to eat as many different things as we can without doing ultimate damage to ourselves. And some of us will fail miserably at that. We will just eat everything. And in the midst of it all, we will remember what we are thankful for. All the blessings we are given, not only on Thanksgiving, but every day of the year. And one way to be sure you live in gratitude all year long is to jump into that let's see attitude, into the divine flow of I don't mind. When we are in that place, everything is right and in balance. So practice your faith and courage and cultivate a curious and creative heart. And let's see. So let's take that into meditation. So I want you to take a big breath and feel your feet planted firmly on the floor. And I want to do today loving kindness meditation. So first, I want to invite you to think of someone you're close to, someone you know well, and someone that you would love to give these thoughts to. And I want you to repeat them silently to yourself as I say them. May you be well. May you feel brave. May you be loved. May you be happy. Now, think of someone that you don't know well, maybe just an acquaintance or someone that you just smile at when you pass them on your daily walk, or someone you saw in the store yesterday, or just someone you're neutral about, a neighbor or acquaintance. And I want you to think of them as I say these words. May you be well. May you feel brave. May you be loved. May you be happy. Now I want you to think of someone who's a challenge to you, someone you may have a little bit of a difficulty having a relationship with. And think of them as I say these words. May you be well. May you feel brave. May you be loved. May you be happy. And now I want you to think of some known or unknown person in the part of the world that is having so many challenges now. It could be someone here in our country. It could be someone who is in the middle of war in the Middle East. It could be someone who has recently gone through a climate disaster, or just anyone that you know who is having a very, very difficult challenge. Whether you know them or not. And think of them as I say these words. May you be well. May you feel brave. May you be loved. May you be happy. And finally, I want you to turn the target of these words to yourself. As I say these words, think of yourself. May you be well. May you be brave. May you be loved. May you be happy. And so we are so grateful to be here today, to be here at this appointed time and place. We know it's no accident that we're here. We know it's divine order. We carry with us the idea, the divine idea of flow, of love bubbling up from our center, from spirit and source. We thank you during this season of gratitude and all year long for all the blessings in our lives, sometimes disguised as problems and obstacles and challenges. We thank you for our spiritual growth. We thank you for the opportunities to be well, to be brave, to be loved, and to be happy. And so it is. And so we let it be. Amen.